Welcome back to Theo's Thoughts, and today's podcast is going to be about wanting to be rich. I'm pretty sure we've all had the phrase go through our minds of, I want to be rich, wow, I wish I had more money. And a lot of us are actually focused on having a lot of money, but the question is, why? I'd say it's relatively simple to answer, actually, because most of us want to be comfortable. Being rich, you feel like you wouldn't have to worry about money, you wouldn't have to worry about the food shop, covering bills, and then on top of that actually enjoying life, going and doing the things you want to do, going and seeing the places you want to see. If you're rich, those things aren't a problem, right? Whereas for the majority of us, actually that is a problem. We do have to be careful with money, we do have to spend a lot of time monitoring our finances, and that's not really fun, it's not really enjoyable. It can actually be really demoralizing for a lot of us, especially with the current economic climate and the cost of living crisis. It seems like a solution. Being rich seems like a solution. On another side of things, you've got that people want to be rich because they want to show off. They want to live lavish lifestyles. They want to be a part of the elite because then they'll feel better about themselves. Money means status, and often status means power. Think back to school days, and all the popular kids seem to have a lot of money, and people gravitate towards that, even at childhood. It's natural to want to be a part of that group. It's natural to want to be a part of the higher class or people that seem to have a better life. Again, those are all things designed to lure us into this sort of mentality of wanting to be rich. And going back to the earlier point of wanting to be rich in order to not focus on money, we actually end up focusing on money a lot. We become fixated on it. We want to have a lot of money, and that comes from, whether it means we're going to try some online opportunities, we're going to pursue our career, and other things that are important to us actually get left behind in this pursuit of finances. So what does being rich actually mean? We start with the most obvious thing, right? We start with rich meaning being very wealthy financially. It means having a big bank balance. It means not having to think about finances whatsoever. Huge savings accounts, lots of cash on hand, whatever it is, it usually just means having a lot of money at your disposal. Usually to the point that you wouldn't even really have to consider what you're buying and what you're making purchases on. But rich can mean other things too. If you think about colours, right, if you're into either art or interior design or whatever, if you talk about rich colours, you're really talking about vibrancy, right? If it's a real rich blue or a rich purple, that would mean that it's a really vivid colour, right? There's a depth to it that there isn't with other colours that you may have available to you. In that context, rich has absolutely nothing to do with money. So if we're talking about wanting to be rich, couldn't that potentially mean that we want to have a rich lifestyle in terms of a fulfilling lifestyle? It's just that we see that money is the quickest way to get there. Or sometimes even that money is the only way to get there, to have that fulfilling lifestyle, to have those opportunities that we want. This is where gratitude comes in. Gratitude is super important. When we talk about wanting to be rich, we're focusing on what we're lacking in our lives rather than what we have. When we're doing that, we're not really enjoying life. We're not enjoying the things that we have available to us. By practicing gratitude, you're drawing your attention away from the things that you don't have to the things that you do have. Okay, so you might not be a millionaire, but do you have a roof over your head? Are you able to put food on the table? Do you have a job you like? Do you have friends that you like? Those things are equally as important as money. Money just is a quicker way of obtaining things, right? But it actually can't get what's important. The best way to practice gratitude is really writing down 3 things every single day that you're grateful for in your life. You'll see that money isn't everything. And actually, it's very rarely that when you're writing about what you're grateful for that you'll say how big my bank balance is, or I'm grateful that I bought this today. It's usually moments in the day that we actually appreciate. Being rich doesn't have to mean money. It really does mean freedom. If you try and view it that way, that wanting to be rich actually just means wanting to be free to live your life, your perspective changes and the way you navigate through life changes. So, of course, money is important to a level, and that is where financial freedom comes in. So why is financial freedom important? Because it gives you a level of independence. Without your own income, you won't be able to support your own life. You'll rely on other people. That can be really demoralizing. You might find yourself really restricted. You might find yourself stuck in situations you don't want to be stuck in. That level of independence is something that, you don't want to go with the phrase that money can't buy, because we're talking about money. But really, when you feel independent, even if you have a very, very small income, having your own money to be in control of your own decisions and your own choices is huge. If somebody gives you £100 and questions you about that £100 and what you've spent it on, how are you going to feel? You're going to feel good? But if it's £100 that you've earned, you can spend it wherever you like. Nobody can tell you what you can and can't do with it. That's the level of freedom we're talking about. That's that level of independence. Yes, money's involved, but in both circumstances, you'd get £100. So actually, it isn't about the money. It's about having your independence. On top of that, if you're financially free, you can pursue your own hobbies. If you don't have financial freedom, if you're tied by the shackles of budgeting, you might not be able to do the things that you want to do. If we think about different hobbies, like joining a tennis club or joining a martial arts club, going and joining a national trust kind of thing, they all require money. But if it's your money, you can decide what's important to you. You can decide what you want to go and do. You can decide where you want to go and what hobbies you want to pursue. And again, that adds a level of importance to what you want to achieve in life. If you have everything accessible to you, it sounds great, but sometimes you don't even know where to start. If you're limited with your choices, that can actually be a really, really beneficial thing. Financial freedom is also super important because it helps you feel like you're moving forward. We are designed to progress in life. We're not meant to be stuck doing the same thing forever and ever. Things should always develop, and every day we have the opportunity to learn new things. Being financially free gives you that opportunity to move forwards. We don't feel stuck back in our childhood bedroom where we're relying on our parents. We feel like, no, actually, I'm able to go out and live my life because I'm financially independent. Obviously, in that desire to be financially independent, it starts to convert into, I just want to be rich. Because it's difficult. It's difficult to get to a point of having enough money that you feel comfortable to not only support your lifestyle, but to enrich it. Wanting to be rich can add to a huge pressure, really. Nowadays on social media, we are being shown so many money-making schemes. So many. It's usually these sort of get-rich-quick opportunities, or, oh, look how easy this is, you can earn money in your sleep. These aren't necessarily bad, but there's a few things to remember. Firstly, most of these are opportunities that are online. The technological world has enabled us to achieve things that we wouldn't be able to otherwise. You can communicate and work with people from all around the world from the comfort of your own room. There's nothing else like it, really. However, it's susceptible to being false and fake. And this is where it gets tricky. So if you see a lot of people saying online, oh, look how much money I made. I made £40,000 in 1 month by selling a diary on Amazon. It's probably not true. There are plenty of scams online. So when you're seeing people dedicating their entire page and influence to making money or helping you make money, there's a good chance it is a scam. They are probably making money off of you trying to make money. you'll have to buy a course, you'll have to participate in a workshop. The issue with that being is, yes, they're offering you advice and they are making money, but they're only making money because you want to make money. If you were to ask them what's their success in just business, I'm not sure it would be that good. On top of that, when they're showing you different figures and they're showing you and proving to you that they've done really well, there is no way to know that that is factual. Photoshop is pretty easy to use. It's easy to doctor images. It's easy to try and portray something that isn't quite accurate and to convince people that it is. Of course, there will be people actually trying to help, but just bear in mind, they might be scamming you. And if they're asking for your money without giving you anything of value first, that is probably their business. It's to lure you in so that you spend money with them, so that you make them rich. Another thing with these online opportunities is actually they're not very well paying. They sound great, but that doesn't mean that they are. There was one example of a transcription service where you could just type and you could make like £200, £400 in a day just by typing, so just in your spare time, if you go on this website and you type up the transcription for a video, you'll earn like 200 quid. Wow, sounds great, right? Well, no, actually they pretty much pay you per hour, and in order to make hundreds of pounds, you have to work like 12 to 16 hours. That's a full-time job. And the pay would be worse than minimum wage, at least here in the UK. It's an option to make money. Definitely, that's great. But it's not a way to get rich. Something that's worth remembering is if you do decide to try and make money online, it will be as much dedication as opening your own business. Nothing in this world comes for free. If you see an opportunity that you want to pursue, then do it, but be prepared to dedicate your time to it. If you're not prepared to dedicate your time to it and you just want to do it so that you get rich, it's probably not worth it and it's probably not going to work. There is, of course, the option of trying to make money through your hobbies. As we mentioned earlier, pursuing hobbies usually costs money, but there is the option of actually making money through your hobbies. Take photography, for example. You could join a photography club, you could arrange different meetups, and usually you have to pay to participate in like photography walks or submitting your work to competitions. But there is the option of freelancing, where you're charging people for taking photos. Those are great options if you want an extra side income. If we go back to what can rich mean, it can mean having a fulfilling life. Being able to make money off of your hobby means being able to enjoy every single day. Being able to enjoy every single day of your life and have the finances to support your lifestyle, I would say that's pretty fulfilled. That's a pretty rich life. Not many of us have that, where we can actually do what we love every single day. We're stuck in a job that we might not love and that we might not even like, but we're too fearful to let go of it because of that financial freedom that we have. So if you have the opportunity to start making money from a hobby, give it a go. Don't put too much pressure on yourself, but it's always worth trying. So let's go over it again. Why do people want to be rich? You want to be able to have access to things. We are shown so much on social media about how great people's lives are. We see what they're being able to buy, where they're able to go on holiday. They're living a life that just seems sort of like a dream. It doesn't seem real, it seems like a film. But on that note, it also probably is that. We have no idea what goes on behind the scenes of that social media account. They might say they're showing you behind the scenes, but they are choosing what they show to you. They are not showing you everything. It's always worth remembering that when you are seeing lifestyles that just seem too good to be true. There is a good chance that they are. Yet, they're called social media influencers for a reason. They have influence over us. They are showing us things that correlate to status, that correlate to success. And we want to feel successful. We want to have a part of that. And being rich gives you that option. But it's not just physical things that you have options with. If you have a lot of money, you might be able to open doors that you wouldn't be able to open otherwise. You might be able to get into elite clubs. You might be able to have access to meet people that you wouldn't get to meet otherwise. If you just talk about certain tickets to events, sometimes they go into the thousands. Not your average person has the option to pay for that. Not many people can afford to pay thousands of pounds for an event that lasts 4 or 5 hours. But if you did have that kind of money, you would meet other people that have that kind of money. And when you meet other people that have that kind of money, you might have more opportunities. Let's say you're a budding filmmaker. If you don't have a lot of money, you might be stuck with your phone to try and create a film. And then you've got to try to get your script to people. You've got to try and make it look professional enough to attract attention. And even the script submissions, there used to be so many things open online with BBC, with Netflix, and now those submissions are pretty much closed. Sometimes they have events, but they're asking for specific things, and usually they'll just take the script from you if it's successful. So you don't really get to be a part of that. You don't get to live out your dream of being a filmmaker. But now if you have a lot of money, well, you could produce it yourself. You could hire directors, you could hire proper actors. That in itself would gain a lot of traction. Being rich financially, it does mean that you have access to things that you wouldn't otherwise have access to. It can also mean not feeling excluded. When you have a lot of money, people gravitate towards you. Going back to the example of being in school, the popular kids always seem to have a lot of money. If you have a pool in the back of your house, people are going to be excited to use it. They'll be your friend just so they can use the pool. If you're able to wine and dine people regularly and you're able to get them into the club, they will want to. But then we also want to be able to be the people who can buy our way into things. So it's this vicious cycle, as I've mentioned earlier. You don't want to be excluded, but actually the minority is in the rich. They are the ones that are sort of excluded. They're the ones that aren't in the majority. And yet somehow people who have average incomes feel excluded because they're not able to do so many things that we are shown that a lot of people do. Again, being rich means having options. When you have money, you can pretty much do whatever you want. Think about, like, if you take out a loan, like a student loan, you're going to be repaying that for pretty much the entirety of your life. That's a big burden to have. I mean, there are ways sort of that it doesn't impact you too badly, but it is always a burden. So you want to make sure that if you decide to go to university, you know what you're doing, you know what you want to do. However, if money didn't matter to you and you just paid it all up front, you could do 10 different courses. You could stay at uni forever learning different things. Having a lot of money does equal having a lot of options. The more money you have, the more options you have. Which is again where it can get very demoralizing for people when they feel like they don't have options because they don't have money, but they have no way to make money. That's when those get rich quick schemes are really, really appealing. Money becomes a central focus when we come from a background where money is restricted. It's like with everything, when there is some sort of negative in our childhood, we want to do everything in our power to make sure we change that for our adult life. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But when money becomes a central focus, that will very unlikely lead to a lot of happiness. It's understandable that we don't want to relive our childhood if it wasn't great, but there are other ways around it that don't involve just focusing on, I want to be rich. So that's where we get to the most interesting and relevant part of this podcast episode, which is how to overcome this fixation of being rich. First thing, enriching your lifestyle. That should be your focus. Not on the actual money, but what can you do to enrich it? If you love working with animals and you wish that you could go to the safari park every day to feed the lions, well, maybe you could apply for a job there. Or you could volunteer at an animal shelter. Now let's say that you want to make a film, right? You can make a film regardless of how much money you have. It might not look great, but thankfully there are so many bits of software out there, like DaVinci Resolve is free to download and use. Not the pro version, but you can still edit and make a pretty decent film. There are so many things that we have access to that you can do it for fun. You can make what you want to make. Yes, it might not be a Hollywood blockbuster, but does that matter to you? And if it does matter to you, why? If you just want people to see it, post it on YouTube. Again, marketing can be free. I mean, usually marketing that's free doesn't have great results, but you can do it. You don't need a lot of money to be able to do that. The next thing is that you want to focus on what's important. As I mentioned earlier in the episode, when you become fixated on money, you lose sight of the things that actually matter to you. Think about a career move for a moment, right? You might have an average job with an average salary and it's just restricting your lifestyle a little bit, but you get to spend a lot of time with family and friends. Another opportunity comes about where you can earn triple what you're earning now, but you'd have to be on the road for 10 months out of the year. So you wouldn't be able to spend time with your family. Of course, you can FaceTime them. Of course, you can message with them. It's not that there'd be no communication, but you wouldn't be able to spend time with them. You'd be on your own and you would pretty much belong to your job. That's tempting for people because of the money. That's tempting because people get a chance to make a lot more money and it feels like they're progressing. But actually what they're doing is restricting themselves even further. Going back to point one of enriching your lifestyle, you're taking away from it. You're actually making your job your entire life. Nothing else matters outside of that career for those 10 months. And you're missing out on those important moments with family. Don't get me wrong, if you don't want to spend time with your family, then it's a great move. But if spending time with your family is important, then that should factor into a decision, not just how much money you're going to make because of it. Budgeting is a really important thing to remember. We talk about financial freedom, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in a previous podcast episode about independence, but budgeting is really important. It's not necessarily a fun task, and it can be quite sad in a moment because you realise how difficult it is to actually afford everything. But by budgeting well, you're able to start to curate the lifestyle you want. So if you know that you need to save X amount of money, whether it's to put a deposit on a house, whether it's to go on holiday, you're going to start to reshuffle things in your life to be able to save that amount of money. So when you're budgeting, the first thing to really focus on is how much money is coming in and how much money is going out, but rounding everything up. If you work it to the penny, you don't give yourself a lot of wiggle room. I'm aware that some people need to work out exact, but for the first round, just try and round everything up. Whether it's to the nearest pound or £10, it really depends on the bill, but it helps give you a little bit of wiggle room. Let's say your electricity bill is £51. If you budget £60, you got £9 free, actually. £9 extra in that month, which means if the bill goes up, you're all right. If it doesn't go up, that also helps add towards the savings. By adding those little bits to the savings, you can often achieve your goal much quicker than you thought you'd be able to. Something to remember with budgeting as well is what things you can cut down on. If you think about streaming services now, they all add up. It might be a little bit more work, but you can sort of alternate. So rather than paying for all of them every single month, give yourself 2 months with one, cancel that subscription, open up another one so you have 2 months of another. Yes, you might be a little bit late watching certain films or certain series when they come out, but does that really matter, or is it better to pocket an extra £30 or £40 a month? I mean, that's up to you to decide. But if you want to become rich, if you want to have a rich lifestyle, and if you want that sort of fulfillment and for money to not have power over you, it means taking the power back. You don't need to prove anything by spending all of your money. The last point to remember of overcoming this fixation with being rich is to understand what you're missing. What is it that you really want from being rich? Again, it goes back to having that enriching lifestyle, right? So What are you missing? Is it that you just want designer clothes, designer bags? Why? Do you think you'll feel happy with it? Maybe you will. But is that materialistic happiness worth the stress of trying to be able to afford that? If you really want one item, let's take like a Dior handbag, for example, the Saddle handbag. Super popular item, but it's a few £1,000s. If you really want that, then you go back to the other step of budgeting. Figure out how you can afford it, if it really makes a difference. You might realise by the time you have all the money saved, you'd rather use that on something else. But if you wouldn't, then you have the option to buy it. But often, when we're looking at things that we're missing, it's because we're missing a feeling. There are other ways that you can get that feeling. Let's say that you really, really want your own horse. Okay, that's a dream that many little girls have, that they want a horse. And they grow up and say, I want my own horse. They're super expensive to look after. There's a lot of hidden costs there. But if you're missing a connection with an animal, you don't have to own that animal to have that connection. You can go volunteer at a yard. They're always looking for help. You can go work at a livery yard if you want to. There are usually jobs going. They're not well paid, but you get to participate in the thing that you love. Without actually having to spend money, you're earning money from it. By understanding what you actually want, you'll be able to make better choices, better decisions. If you just fixate on the monetary value of things, it won't be clear to you why you're not happy with your current situation. If you live in a 2-bedroom house, you're like, well, I want a 4-bedroom house. Why? Is it because you want kids? Okay, well, how do you manage to get to that other house? If you just want a bigger house because it feels like you should have a bigger house, if you put yourself under a lot of financial strain to get that bigger house to make it look like you're rich and doing well and moving forwards, you won't feel happy because you'll effectively be living a lie. Again, we go back to social media. If you just present yourself to the world as, oh, this is great and I'm doing really well, I'm actually really rich, but really you're struggling, every day is going to be difficult for you. So in conclusion, to wrap this episode up, there's different ways for you to make money on top of like your normal income. So if you want additional income, there are multiple ways. It can be hobbies, freelancing, it can be trying these online sort of money-making schemes, whatever it is. I mean, it can be traditional investing, but that's always risky. There are always options, no matter what situation you're in. Remember, money isn't everything. Rich doesn't have to mean money. Rich can mean fulfilling. You don't have to have a lot of money to have a fulfilling lifestyle. Also remember that social media is lying to you. Don't compare yourself or your current lifestyle to what you see on social media. Take it as like a film, take it as fiction. It's nice to look at, it's nice to sort of indulge a little bit in it, but don't let it influence you to the point that you're making decisions because of social media. Finally, being rich comes from being grateful for what you already have. You are already expressing gratitude for feeling fulfilled with your life. You can want more. It's always good to strive for more things. It's always great to set yourself goals and aspirations, but you'll feel richer if you actually appreciate every single thing that you have in your life. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and hopefully you'll join me next time.